Pretty boys who didn't kill. You are so blessed. I am again. Here are 7 reasons why you can't refuse to kill. This suspense from 30 years ago. Perfect interpretation. The original advanced way of killing. Never been so casual. 7 lives in 7 days. Atonement for 7 counts. And the ending of the film is incredible. It shows a talented murderer. How flawless his plan will be. A fat man weighing a ton. He was found dead in his home. And the cause of his death is even more unbelievable. Preliminary conclusion is that he propped himself to death. Found after dissecting the corpse. His stomach is several times the size of a normal person. What's even more shocking is, even with such a large stomach, it has also been burst by the food eaten. Lead. The abdomen is full of spaghetti that has been served. Massive expansion of the duodenum. The inner wall was also ruptured by the sharply swallowed food. This way of eating can no longer be described as gluttony. But what is the reason? Can let him eat it regardless of life and death. The crime scene was a remote slum. Rent a house to the smell of corpses. Someone was stinking unbearably before choosing to call the police. Through the cabinet. Lots of pasta sauce still in storage. It can be concluded that the fat man loves spaghetti. The body was on the dining table when the fat man was found. The head is buried in the unfinished noodles. A gluttonous man's last dream comes true. Died in a favorite food. But there are also indications at the crime scene. Fatty's death will definitely not be so simple. In the trash can under the dining table. It's all fat people's vomit. His hands and feet are also tied with ropes. He had a few bruises from the beating. The back of the head looks like it was held at gunpoint for a long time. Traces left behind. This can be to conclude that the fat man is under threat from others. Just eat your own. World. Could there really be such a perverted murderer? However, such a long killing process. If not extreme hatred, then what the murderer did must have meant something else. Believe in a friend who has killed someone. Should be able to understand this. According to the fat man's interpersonal relationship survey, the fat man has never had a grudge against anyone. So, what is the motive for this murderer's murder? However, there is still no clue about the case. The next day, someone was murdered. This time the identity of the deceased is not simple. He's a well-known local lawyer. The lawyer was found dead in his office. The media are speculating. Or it's a conflict of interest within the firm. Either the lawyer got revenge for his previous defense, but after seeing the crime scene, Mills was determined. That's not true. There was a lot of blood on the carpet. The murderer also wrote greed in blood. In the photo of the lawyer's wife, also painted a pair of glasses with blood, as if the truth was buried under the blood. Forensics in fat man's food. Found some strange plastic. Apparently, the murderer forced the fat man to swallow it. But what is this move trying to prove? A sudden clue. I had to let Uncle Jen return to the crime scene. Something important is missing here. When Shu found deep drag marks in front of the refrigerator. However, the plastic in the fat man's belly, it just fits the trace. So, there must be something hidden by the killer behind the refrigerator. After pushing open the refrigerator, I found the words "tell the time" written on the wall. There is also a note left by the murderer on purpose below. The clues led by the murderer. Suddenly, several people felt that this murderer is no ordinary person. The death of the fat man is just the beginning of the killing. On the wall is the words gluttony written on oil paper, combined with the words greed written in the blood of lawyers. Uncle Jen suspects that these are the 7 deadly sins in theology. In addition to that, and laziness, anger, arrogance, lust, and jealousy. From this, it can be judged. There are 5 more murders to come. The murderer intends to do it in this way. Trial of the next 5. But no one knows who the next 5 people will be. In order to find out the killer's train of thought as soon as possible, Uncle decides to stand in the murderer's shoes. Go to the relevant information on the 7 deadly sins. And Mills looks for clues in the case itself. The fat man's death has no progress. Lawyers' cases also get them into trouble. Although this lawyer is very famous, but it's notorious. The body was only found on Tuesday. The office had been closed for the past few days. No one has ever seen a lawyer, so there is reason to suspect. The killer snuck in last Friday, until everyone except the lawyer left after get off work. The murderer kidnapped the lawyer and tortured him to death on Saturday and Sunday. In the office, the balance of justice becomes the lawyer's greatest humiliation. His flesh and blood were cut off by the murderer. On the scales, a lawyer who upholds justice. In the end, he died under his own definition of justice. Again, this time the murderer also left a message. And here's the scary part. The lawyer is under the gun of the murderer. Cut it alive with a knife. Own meat. Weird crime scene. Let Uncle Jen think. The murderer is still preaching. Punish the dead. The purgatory chapter in the Calm Divine Comedy. Calm down and go to the mountains with his friends. Examine all sinners. There are 7 levels of purgatory in total. But the first level of purgatory is not gluttony. It's arrogance. Although it is a bit different from today's cases. But there's no denying it. The murderer's inspiration for murder came from this book. The layout of the crime scene is that the murderer is preaching. And the point of sermons is to atone for sins. The killer didn't kill these people himself. Its purpose is to force the deceased to atone for their sins. The murderer was a very cautious man. No fingerprints were left in either murder. There is absolutely no way he can leave the police at a loss. Maybe he just doesn't want this killing game become too simple. Then at the crime scene, there must be clues that have not been searched. The lawyer's wife wife went to another city at the time of the incident. But this weird photo, as if pointing to what he had seen, or maybe not what he saw, but he should see, but something I haven't seen yet. But as for what, the answer must lie in women. However, after meeting a woman, he's been in a state of grief and indignation. I won't understand. What did the two of them think they saw? But the truth, it must be in these crime scene photos. Sure enough, when a woman sees the mural in the photo, something was wrong. This mural is upside down. Then this mural must have been taken down. What is certain so far is, no one from the police has touched the painting, so people who have moved pictures, it must be a lawyer or a murderer. However, after removing the mural, I found nothing unusual on the wall. Then, and certainly not taking down this painting for no reason. So weird, it should be in the picture frame, but when Uncle Jen drew the back, still found nothing inside. There is nothing suspicious about the painting. Could the problem be on the wall behind the mural? The dust left by the brush just happened to show the fingerprints on the wall. However, the number of fingerprints left behind is a bit ridiculous. These fingerprints are made up of the word "save me," but it can be concluded that these fingerprints are not the victims. Could it be the murderer? But why would he leave fingerprints? Fingerprint matching will take a while. Two people with no other clues. We can only wait for the matching result. But the fingerprints the killer deliberately left behind. But it made Uncle Jen feel a strong sense of unease. He knows very well, the criminals they are facing this time are not ordinary people. The most promising clue today will definitely send them led into a more complex maze. Until the night passed, the matching result is finally out. Fingerprints from the crime scene points to a petty drug dealer named Victor. Victor suffered from severe mental illness for a long time. From an early age, he was also subject to the strict Christian teachings of his parents. And this person has a multiple criminal record, but he always escaped a harsh trial through his lawyer. And his lawyer was the lawyer who was killed. Now all the signs of Victor. He must be the murderer. But both Uncle Jen and Mills felt that easily surfaced. It's always just an illusion to deceive you. Sure enough, when the police went to great lengths to find Victor, he was found dead in his bed. Skinny body covered with festering bed sores. His body was also tied to the bed. And the words lazy were also left on the wall. The box at the end of the bed contains a large number of photos of Victor. The most recent one was taken 3 days ago, and the first one in the photo. It is also the one in the best physical condition of Victor. It was taken a year ago today. So, he has been tortured for a year. Now they also understand. That's the killer provoking them. Just as everyone thinks, when Victor was dead, but he came back to life strangely. No one could have imagined Victor as a mummy today. What kind of method did the murderer use? Keep him alive to this day. However, in the face of the murderer's blatant provocation, the police are helpless. Now furious Mills can't find anyone to vent to, unfortunately, and one of the reporters got in. Journalists don't listen to Mills' advice, still going my own way. This completely angered Mills, who had nowhere to vent. The reporter threatened Mills. I have pictures of you with violent law enforcement. Then he quickly left here. Although Victor is not dead, but he will definitely not survive today. During a year of imprisonment, his muscles and spine were severely degraded. There's a lot of antibiotics in the blood. It's these drugs. That's what kept him alive until now. Victor now, there's no human consciousness at all, and the murderer had already cut out his tongue, just to prevent today. Victor still has a chance to be interrogated. 7 deadly sins. Now there are 3 crimes that have been purged, but the whole process of solving the case has made no progress. Everything that happened, all according to the murderer's plan, and Victor was held captive for a year. But the murderer is now exactly 1 year later. Lure the police over, during which the murderer chopped off Victor's hand, used as a tool to guide the police. Cases that have arisen so far, everything is interconnected, as you can imagine. How complex is this murderer's ruse? How meticulous the thinking is. The most terrifying thing is his unshakable patience. Now the case-solving process has been in a passive state. Uncle Jen had to make a decision that could cost you your pension. He found his friend at the Joint Debugging Bureau, at a sky-high price of 200 yuan. Purchased information secretly collected by the Joint Debugging Bureau. Original Joint Debugging Bureau has been secretly collecting citizens' more sensitive private information. For example, what special books did you look up in the library? The library's lending system will be sent to the Joint Debugging Office immediately, although illegal, but no one dared to object. If someone spends a period of time borrowed books related to the 7 deadly sins, so this person must have some kind of pathological psychology. Sure enough, I found a man named Jonathan, not only borrowed and murdered theology-related books, I even wrote my own stuff about the 7 deadly sins. Although I don't know if this person is related to the case, but at least they have a chance to take the initiative. However, when the two of them first arrived at Jonathan's house, a man appeared at the end of the corridor. He calmly took out his pistol and fired a few shots at them. Then the man decisively chose to flee. Mills caught up, but when I came to the nearby alley, Mills was hit hard by the man in ambush. The man pointed a gun at Mills' head. At this time, Uncle Jen finally caught up, but the man wasn't going to kill Mills, but withdraw the gun. Chosen. The two escaped and returned to their previous residence. Mills is going to break in, but Uncle Jen did not have a search warrant, trying to stop Mills. But in fact, what he cares most about is buying information from the Joint Debugging Bureau. Absolutely cannot be known by the rest. But the angry Mills couldn't handle so much. He kicked open the door with one kick. To avoid the possibility of being investigated, Uncle Jen bribed the nearby residents. Black people say that in several murders, this man goes out a lot. So with the attitude of a good citizen, the black man chose to call Uncle Jen to inform him of the situation. So Uncle Jen and Mills came to investigate the situation. That's what happened after the shooting and chasing and breaking the door. In the subsequent investigation here, and they found all sorts of unusual tools in the room. The decorations in the house are also very strange. There are still a lot of empty medicines in the drawer. There was also the spaghetti sauce that ate the fat man at that time. The vessel also contains Victor's severed arm. Then the person who just ran away. Undoubtedly the murderer of the 7 deadly sins. On the wall, Uncle Jen found a purchase list for Wild BRPG. Below the list is a woman in fashionable clothes. Could the murderer's next target be this woman? The bed under the cross should belong to the murderer himself. In a cluttered room, it's full of creepy meanings. The room is filled with photos of the deceased. On the bookshelf, placed murderer's long-written philosophy of human nature. But the lines are full of selfish hatred. But then, Niles saw something that scared him. Soaked in developer. It was at the scene of Victor's crime. Photos reported by Niels. So, the reporter the day may have just fled. Running murderer. Obviously the murderer is by your side. But I missed him. The suspect's appearance was determined through the retelling of his appearance. But in the room, no more information related to identity was found. In this huge house, no fingerprints were left, while the police were collecting evidence from the house. But the phone rang quickly from inside the house. But the bell rang from a pile of clothes. After expressing his admiration and apologies, the murderer hung up the phone hastily. But such a move, no doubt more contempt for the police. Now, new evidence further confirms that the murderer was preaching. Judging from the dress of the woman in the photo, she should be a prostitute. The owner of the leather goods store also confirmed. Yesterday was this man, came to pick up the order, and then they also found the prostitute in the bar. The word lust is carved on the door. The prostitute also died in the bed. The guests at this time are very excited. He had a knife tied between his legs. The customer said if he didn't do it, then he will die. Before prostitutes, I thought I found the murderer. The place of residence can determine the development of subsequent murders, but I didn't expect to be one step behind the entire police process. As always, being guided by the murderer. Things are going further and further off the track of imagination. Both are eager to solve the case early. Uncle Jen plotted to solve the case and then retired. Receive a high pension. Mills is looking forward to being promoted after the case is closed. Career is bright, but the current situation, they're really overthinking it. Because just tonight, the killer dialed 911, showing off his new achievements. A model died in her home. The words arrogant are written on the wall. Sleeping pills in the left hand. It is firmly glued to the hand by glue. The other hand is glued to the phone. The face of the deceased was ripped off layer by layer. Finally, wrap the face with a bandage. Such a process, the victim must have called for help. But in this way, disfigurement will also be made public. 4-1. For the arrogant man who loves beauty more than life, the only way to get rid of the pain is to kill yourself. Uncle Jen and Mills today. I have no confidence in finding the murderer. Both of them are torn to continue the investigation. Just then, a taxi stopped in front of the police station. A man with blood on his body. I chose to walk step by step to the police station. The man has been following Mills. Think of the real murderer. It turned out to be Jonathan, played by Kevin Spacey. No one knows why Jonathan turned himself in, but after being controlled, he had to call in his lawyer. However, the moment I saw Jonathan, the police finally understand why. No fingerprints were found at Jonathan's residence, because he has used a knife, cut off all his fingerprints. And here's what's even stranger. All of Jonathan's surviving records, all 5 years ago, as if within 5 years. It's like there's no such person. So the only thing I know for now is, this man is rich and learned, but also perverted. But why did he choose to surrender at this time? Such a move, let the police find no reason to make sense. But sure, this pervert must be playing a new trick. After all, his 7 deadly sins are not yet complete. Could it be that his surrender? Just to come and laugh at the powerlessness of the police? Now only 2 corpses are needed to complete the 7 deadly sins. But Jonathan was voluntarily controlled by the police. So, how should he commit murder? Or he has committed the 7 deadly sins. It's just that there are still bodies that have not been found. The lawyer informed the police. Jonathan hid the other 2 bodies. But if you want to find these 2 bodies, Jonathan must take Uncle Jen and Mills there. And the time must be to leave at 6 p.m. today. As for why they chose Uncle Jen and Mills, the Chamber of Secrets says I don't know either. Anyway, if you don't accept this condition, then the police will never be able to locate the body. Jonathan is an extremely unstable element. Now he actually took the initiative to bring the case to justice. The police are already thankful. They see no need to take any more risks. But such a move, in fact, it has already been calculated by Jonathan. If the police still do not accept, then he will plead insanity. Perfect escape, to reassure the police. Lawyers also say, if the police accept to search for the body, so Jonathan will immediately sign a full confession. The lawyer also warns several people. Now there are 2 more victims out there. If you let the media know, Police don't care about victims in order to close cases. Then the reputation of the entire police department will also be lost. Now, it is uncertain whether there are really 2 more victims, but the blood on Jonathan's body revealed that there is indeed the blood of an unknown woman. The threat posed by Jonathan ultimately had to make them decide to go. Under the escort of a helicopter, Uncle Jen and Mills took Jonathan, went to the destination, the human game of 3 best actors. It is at this time that it finally unfolds. Uncle Jen has already guessed it. The name Jonathan is just a fake. Instead of judging him, at this moment, Uncle Jen wants to know more. Who is this man? Fears is certain. This outing by Jonathan, it's definitely not as simple as retrieving 2 bodies. After all, if it ends like this. So, for a paranoid, perfect criminal genius, it is absolutely not artistic shock. What Jonathan has to do is to sublimate it completely at the last moment. But Mills thinks, even so, the sand that rises will eventually return to dust. Who will remember you then? I have also flown through the sky, but the language of numbers. How can you realize the ambition?